Okay, dear students, let's start our today's topic. Our today's topic is another infectious disease that is known as ascariasis. So first we will look at the cause of this ascariasis. What is its causative agent? The causative agent for ascariasis is a nematode parasite, or we call it as Eschhelminth parasite or Eschhelminth parasite. Ascaris lumbricoides. Ascaris lumbricoides. So the causative agent for ascariasis is a nematode parasite or Eschhelminth parasite known as Ascaris lumbricoides. So mode of infection, how it gets into our body, how it infects a person. The mode of infection for ascariasis is direct and oral, direct and oral, or we can also say fecal-oral, fecal-oral route. So the eggs of this parasite, they are present in the stools of human beings. When the stools mix with the water, the eggs may go into the water. Or if the stools are laid in open, those stools dry and they release the eggs in the soil. Then, if a person comes in contact with that soil containing the eggs may stick to his hands or they may sit under his nails. Or if a person consumes contaminated these vegetables and fruits, vegetables are grown in the soil, fruits are grown in the soil, right? Or fruits fall from trees onto the soil. If a person consumes those fruits and vegetables without washing them properly, they may possess ascaris eggs, and those ascaris eggs, along with the fruit, along with the vegetable, they go into our alimentary canal, where the eggs hatch and they release the larvae of the ascaris. Or if a person drinks that contaminated water in which the human excreta was released, right? So that contaminated water may contain the eggs of ascaris. So the eggs are passed in the fecal matter of a suffering person, and these eggs are then directly taken into our body through our mouth along with contaminated food and water. So that is direct and oral or fecal-oral route. That is its mode of infection. Then what are the symptoms of ascariasis? Ascariasis, it may be in the form of a light infection or it may be in the form of a heavy infection. If a person is having light ascariasis infection, light infection, that means the person is not having too many worms in his alimentary canal. In that situation, the person may simply feel nausea, vomiting, some abdominal pain, some abdominal pain, or diarrhea and diarrhea. If the person is suffering from light ascaris infection, that means the worms are present in his alimentary canal, but not in huge numbers. The person may simply feel nausea. The person may suffer from vomiting. The person may feel abdominal pain, and the person may suffer from diarrhea. In case of heavy infections, a person may experience severe abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, diarrheas, diarrhea. The person may vomit. The person may vomit ascaris or pus ascaris in stools. The person may also suffer from lack of appetite, lack of appetite. The person may also suffer from fatigue, weight loss, weight loss, fatigue, or malnutrition and malnutrition and malnutrition. So there may be a severe or heavy infection in some persons. Those persons who are having severe ascariasis infection, they may experience severe abdominal pain. They may experience very high pain or very severe pain in their abdomen. They may suffer from nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. They may vomit ascaris. They may vomit out ascaris through their mouth, or the ascaris may pass out in stools. They may experience lack of appetite. They may experience fatigue. They may experience weight loss, and they may experience malnutrition. So all the nutrients which are ingested by the person, after digestion, these nutrients, they are taken up by the ascaris. So the person is deprived of nutrients, and because of this nutrient robbery by ascaris, the person suffers from malnutrition. The person suffers from weight loss. The person doesn't have energy for carrying out work. So they rob a person of his nutrients. These parasites, they remain in our alimentary canal. They remain in our small intestine, right? So when we take nutrients, we digest the nutrients. Those digested nutrients, instead of being assimilated by the person, those digested nutrients, they are robbed by the ascaris parasite. Ascaris, they use those nutrients. And the person suffers from malnutrition, person suffers from weight loss, person suffers from fatigue. And the person may develop diarrhea, or sometimes in children, the ascariasis may cause intestinal blockade. Ascaris, they accumulate in small intestine in very large numbers, and they block the lumen of small intestine. So they may cause intestinal blockade, which then necessitates a surgery, right? So heavy infestation of these worms is very dangerous. These ascaris, this ascaris, it can go to any body organ. When the ascaris eggs reach into our small intestine, the larvae hatch from those eggs, and then those larvae, they go for a body tour. They go on a 10 days body tour. So we will discuss that. Just first, I am going to rub it. These were the symptoms of ascariasis. Now, this ascariasis infection is associated with some complications. We will see how complications develop. So, when the eggs reach into intestine, in intestine, larvae hatch. Larvae, rhabditiform larvae. Rhabditiform. Actually, they are the young stages or juvenile stages of ascaris. They are juvenile stages. They are not a larvae in true sense. Rhabditiform larva, it is actually a juvenile stage. It is not a larva in true sense. Ascariasis, ascaris, it shows direct development. So these are juvenile stages, young stages of the ascaris, right? So when the eggs hatch in small intestine, it releases this rhabditiform larva, this juvenile stage. These juvenile stages or these larvae, they bore through wall of intestine, and they may enter into blood circulation or they may enter into lymphatic circulation. They are mostly carried by blood circulation, through blood circulation. They are carried to heart. From heart, they are carried to lungs. When the larva hatches out from the egg, this rhabditiform larva, it is just 0.2 to 0.3 millimeter in length. When this rhabditiform larva or the juvenile stage, when it reaches into lungs, it grows in the lungs. It becomes 2 to 3 millimeter long in lungs. It damages the lung alveoli, causing hemorrhages. In lungs, it causes a hemorrhage known as petechial hemorrhage. Petechial hemorrhages. So blood accumulates in the lung alveoli. So lungs, they seem to be filled with the blood. And this damage to the lung alveoli, it also causes accumulation of fluid in the lungs. And this accumulation of fluid in the lungs, it causes edema, inflammation of the lungs. It causes edema. Edema means inflammation of the lungs, right? So when the larvae hatch from the eggs, they bore through the wall of alimentary canal, they bore through the wall of small intestine. They enter into blood circulation mostly. Through blood, they are carried to heart. Then from heart, they go into lungs. In the lungs, these larvae grow in size. They reach to 2 to 3 millimeter in length in the lung alveoli. Then they start damaging the alveolar walls. They start rupturing the alveolar wall, right? So this rupturing of alveolar wall and it is associated blood capillaries. It causes bleeding in the lungs. Those bleedings, they are known as petechial hemorrhages. So blood spots start appearing in the lungs. And it also causes accumulation of fluid in the lung alveoli. So that accumulation of fluid, that leads to inflammation of the lungs, that leads to edema of the lungs. And finally, a person may develop pneumonia. Then from lungs, these larvae, they go into trachea. From trachea, they go to larynx. From larynx, either they may be coughed out. Or they may be vomited out through nose, through mouth. Or from larynx, they may go into pharynx. And from pharynx, they again enter into alimentary canal. They go into stomach. And from stomach, they go into small intestine. Where they change into adults. And they reproduce, male and female copulates. And then female lays eggs in the small intestine of this person. And those eggs again hatch out. And the number of these ascaris, they increase in the small intestine of the person, right? So this journey from small intestine, then back into small intestine, it takes some 10 to 14 days. So these larvae, they go for a body tour of 10 to 14 days. After 10 to 14 days, they reach back into small intestine. Then they grow into adult worms. These larvae from heart, They may be carried to brain, where they may cause injuries to the brain. They may be carried to the kidneys, where these larvae may damage the kidneys. They may be carried to liver, while they may cause obstruction in the bile duct. Sometimes the larvae they enter into hepatopancreatic duct or directly into pancreatic duct, causing the obstruction in the uh, release of pancreatic juice, right? Sometimes they block bile duct, causing obstructive jaundice, right? So these larvae, through blood circulation, they may reach into any body organ and they may cause various types of injuries to those different body organs. In children, if the larvae reach into brain, they cause convulsions. They cause convulsions in the children, right? So these larvae, they are extremely dangerous. They may cause damage to any body organ. They cause damage particularly to lungs, where they cause petechial hemorrhages, leading to edema and finally pneumonia, right? If they reach into brain, they may cause convulsions. If they reach into kidney, they may cause damage to kidneys. If they reach into bile duct, they cause obstructive jaundice. If they reach into pancreatic duct, they may cause obstruction in the flow of pancreatic juice, right? So they can damage any body organ. So these larvae are very dangerous. So this is about their life cycle, right? Their body tour. So these larvae, they are dangerous than the adult worms. Adult worms simply cause abdominal pain. They rob our nutrients, or sometimes they may cause blockade of the intestine, right? But these larvae, they can damage any body organ. They can cause pneumonia. They can cause this convulsions. They can cause kidney damage. They can cause obstructive jaundice. They can cause pancreatitis, inflammation of the pancreas due to non-secretion of the pancreatic juice, right? They may cause damage to the spleen, right? So these larvae are very dangerous and they can cause damage to different body organs. So that is about the journey of larvae from small intestine through heart, lungs, then back into small intestine, right? So that is about the symptoms of ascariasis. So the ascariasis is mainly characterized by nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, right? Then there may be some other symptoms, abdominal pain, there may be malnutrition, there may be weight loss, there may be fatigue, right? There may be, sometimes they may enter into appendix, causing appendicitis. Sometimes these larvae may enter into appendix and causing appendicitis, right? So they can damage different body organs, right? Larvae are more dangerous than the adult worms. Adult worms, they may cause enteritis, they may cause inflammation of the small intestine, but larvae can cause damage to any body organ. So that is about the symptoms of ascariasis. Now, what is the prevention? How we can prevent ourselves from getting this ascariasis, infection? Prevention is always better than cure. So, how we can save ourselves from contacting this ascariasis infection? Prophylaxis. So, first of all, maintaining clean hygiene, maintaining hygienic conditions, maintaining hygienic conditions. So, we should regularly trim our nails. We should wash our hands with soap before taking meals. We should properly wash our hands with soap after going to toilet. We should wash our hands when we are in contact with the soil. Suppose you are involved in gardening. So in gardening, you come in contact with the soil. So after the gardening practice is over, then you should properly wash your hands with soap because these ascaris eggs, they are mostly present in soil, right? So maintaining clean hygiene, right? Number second, covering of eatables. So we should not keep our food items exposed to houseflies and cockroaches. Houseflies, they sit on the drains where the human excreta may be present. If the human excreta is present in open, houseflies may sit on it and they may carry the eggs. And those houseflies, if they sit on our food items, they will transfer the eggs from excreta to food items, right? Similarly, cockroaches, they may also move over the excreta. And if then they move over our food items, they may transfer the eggs, right? So covering up eatables. Number second, washing, proper washing of fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables. So we mostly go to the orchards and we take the fallen fruit in those orchards. Those fallen fruit, they come in contact with the soil. If anyone has passed his excreta, if anyone had defecated in that orchard, the fecal matter decomposes, but the ascaris eggs, they remain in the soil. If that fallen fruit comes in contact with that contaminated soil, the eggs may stick to the fruit. We usually pick up the fruit, we wipe it, and we start eating it, right? So wiping it, just wiping it, will not remove all the ascaris eggs. So that way, we are prone to the infection. Similarly, we visit our kitchen gardens. We have carrots there in the soil. We take out a carrot, we just rub it, we try to remove the soil, then we start eating it. So those vegetables which are in contact with the soil, they may be having ascaris eggs on them. So we should never eat these fruits and vegetables without proper washing because they may always contain ascaris eggs on them. So washing of fruits and vegetables properly before eating, right? We should also monitor where from our drinking water is coming, right? If you are taking drinking water from a stream, you should see whether any open type latrine is not on the bank of that stream. If a latrine is on the bank of that stream, then you should avoid taking that water, right? Or if you have only that water source, then you should boil that water before drinking, right? So when human excreta is passed into the water, that human excreta contains the eggs, and those eggs may be present in the water, and drinking that water may cause the infection, right? So by this way, if we take care, if we wash our hands, if we cover our eatables, if we consume fruits and vegetables after properly after washing, right, and if we screen our food sources and water sources, then we are not likely to get this ascaris infection. And we should regularly trim our nails because most of the dust particles and dirt particles or soil particles, they remain sitting beneath our nail tips, right? So we should clean our nails. We should trim our nails regularly. So that is about the prophylaxis of ascaris. Then treatment. A person who has any one of those symptoms which we discussed, right? He should visit a doctor, and doctor may prescribe a suitable antihelminthic drug. Antihelminthic drug. One should not take drugs by himself. Self medication is dangerous, right? Doctor will prescribe a suitable antihelminthic drug, mostly albendazole. Albendazole is prescribed, right? So doctor may prescribe an antihelminthic drug. These antihelminthic tablets, or it is in liquid form, it is taken once and it gets rid, it removes the adult worms even. It kills the adult worms in the intestine. It is not necessary that worms will pass out in the fecal matter. These worms may get killed in the intestine and they degenerate there in the intestine. So it is not necessary that worms should pass out in the fecal matter, right? So albendazole, it kills the worms inside the intestine. They degenerate there, and the worms may not pass in the excreta, right? So antihelminthic drug treatment by through antihelminthic drugs is very useful. So by using antihelminthic drugs, a person may completely recover from this Ascariasis infection, right? So that is all about Ascariasis. Now there is another helminth infection, helminth parasite, which causes a disease in human beings. That disease is known as filariasis. This time we are discussing the diseases caused by helminth parasites. Filariasis. It is another disease caused by helminth parasite. Helminth parasite. Wuchereria bancrofti. And by another parasite, helminth parasite, Brugia malai. So filariasis is caused by two different helminth parasites. Either it may be caused by Wuchereria bancrofti. It is a helminth parasite, or it may be caused by another helminth parasite, Brugia malai. This is also a helminth parasite. So both of them cause the filariasis. So how we contact this filariasis? What is its mode of infection? Mode of infection. Its mode of infection is indirect. Indirect and inoculative. That means the parasite does not enter into our body through mouth. It enters into our body indirectly. How? By an inoculative method. So it is injected into our body. Who injects the parasite into our body? It is injected into our body by mosquito bites. Through mosquito bites. Two mosquitoes, Culex and Aedes. It is inoculated. It is injected into our body through the bites of mosquitoes, Culex mosquito and Aedes mosquito. They may inject this parasite into our body at the time of bite. So when the mosquito bites a person, mosquito releases some saliva into the body tissue so that blood does not coagulate in his proboscis, so that blood keeps flowing directly into his stomach, right? In his saliva, at the time of bite, through proboscis, the mosquitoes release microvilli. Microvilli. These are the larvae of this filarial worm, right? So they release these microvilli into our blood circulation. Into blood circulation. So the mode of infection for filariasis is indirect and inoculative. So when Culex mosquito or Aedes mosquito, when they bite a person, they introduce through their proboscis microvilli into his blood circulation, right? So that is its mode of infection. After inoculating a person with these microvilli, they pass through the blood circulation, and finally they enter into lymphatic circulation. They finally go into lymphatic circulation. Lymphatic circulation. Then they stay in lymph vessels. They reside in lymph vessels where they grow into adult worms. Where they grow into adult worms. Then they cause the obstruction in lymphatic circulation. So this is how they enter into our body. So the mode of infection is indirect and inoculative. Now, what are the symptoms? In light infection, a person may develop light infection. A person doesn't suffer from severe complications. A person may simply develop some fever. A person may develop headache. In light infections, a person doesn't suffer from severe complications. He simply may have some fever and headache. However, in heavy infection, these worms which reside in worms which reside in lymph vessels, they block lymphatic circulation. They block lymphatic circulation. You know, lymph is formed from blood, and lymph is finally returned back to blood. So the rate of formation of lymph, rate of formation of lymph, formation of lymph, it is equal to rate of return of lymph. So lymph is formed from blood. It flows through the body tissues. Then it finally collects in small lymph vessels. Small lymph vessels join, they form larger lymph vessels. Then all the lymph vessels of the body, they unite in the trunk region. They form the right lymphatic duct and the thoracic duct. Then this right lymphatic duct and thoracic duct, it finally opens into superior vena cava. So it returns lymph back to the blood. So lymph is formed from blood and lymph is returned back to the blood, right? So rate of formation of lymph is always equal to rate of return of lymph. So when these worms, adult worms, when they occupy the lymph vessels, they cause blockade in lymphatic circulation. They block the lymph vessels. Heavy infestation of the worms in the lymph vessels causes blockade in lymphatic circulation. So lymph is formed out in body tissues, but lymph is not returned back to the blood, right? So this lymph accumulates in body tissue. Lymph accumulates. Lymph accumulates in body tissues. Body tissue. So whenever there is accumulation of fluid in body tissue, that causes edema or swelling. So accumulation of lymph in body tissues, it causes edema, or we call it as swelling. So which body organs are most affected? The most affected organs are lower limbs, scrotum, mammary glands, arms, hands and feet. Hands and feet. So it mostly affects the limbs of a person. These adult worms, they reside in the lymphatic vessels of the limbs of the body, right? They reside in the lymph vessels of the arms. They reside in the lymph vessels of the limbs, right? So lymph accumulates in feet. Lymph accumulates in lower body, these lower legs. Lymph may accumulate in sucratal sac. Lymph may accumulate around mammary glands. And these organs of the body, they become highly swollen. They become highly swollen. The limbs of a person resemble with the limbs of an elephant. The limbs of an elephant, they are very much thick, right? So if the feet of a person may be like this, the feet of a person may become like this, swollen. The person develops elephant-like legs. The person develops swelling in the legs, right? So limbs of a person, they swell like the limbs of an elephant. That is why it is also known as elephantiasis. Filariasis is also known as elephantiasis. Elephantiasis. Why it is also known as elephantiasis? Because the limbs of a person, they swell like the limbs of the elephant. You have seen elephants, they have got very thick legs. So the limbs of a person, due to accumulation of lymph in them, they swell and they resemble with the limbs of an elephant. That is why it is also known as elephantiasis. So further complication occur by accumulation of abnormal tissues in these lymph vessels. So in this case, in filariasis, the lymphatic circulation is obstructed. Lymph accumulates in body tissues like lower limbs, like sucratum, like mammary glands, like arms, hands, and feet. And this causes enormous swelling of these body organs. And these swollen body organs, they resemble with the body organs of the elephant, right? Elephant is huge in size. So the limbs, they swell up like the limbs of elephants. That is why the disease have also been given the name elephantiasis. Then abnormal connective tissue is formed in those lymph vessels, which further complicates the situation, And the person develops fever, and the person develops then mental confusion. A person may suffer from mental confusion. The person becomes depressed due to these enlarged limbs, enlarged sucratal sac, enlarged mammary glands, right? So person develops fever. The person develops sometimes headache. The person becomes depressed. The person develops mental confusion because of this infection, right? There is no complete cure for this filariasis. There is no complete cure for filariasis. However, those persons who are having a very light filarial infection, they may get some relief by use of antihelminthic drugs like albendazole. There is no complete cure for elephantiasis. Elephantiasis cannot be completely cured even after surgery. If through surgery we remove these worms from the lymphatic vessels, then just after a few days, more vessels reside in those lymph vessels. So surgery is of no use, right? However, those persons who are having light infection, they may get some relief by using albendazole and albendazole, antihelminthic drug, right? So it is not completely curable. So we must protect ourselves from getting this infection. Then how can we protect ourselves from getting this infection? So prevention is just like that in case of malaria. So we have to prevent ourselves. We have to protect ourselves from mosquito bites. We need to destroy the breeding sites of mosquitoes. We need to kill the adult mosquitoes, right? So protecting ourselves from mosquito bites by proper wire gauzing of the doors and windows, by sleeping under mosquito nets, by using some mosquito repellent chemicals, by applying those mosquito repellent creams on the exposed body parts during sleep, before going to sleep, right? Then we may destroy the mosquito populations by destroying their breeding sites. So we should fill ditches with soil. We should sprinkle kerosene oil on large sized stagnant water bodies. We may introduce larvicidal fishes in the ponds. We may introduce ducks and geese in the ponds. We may introduce some insectivorous plants in the ponds, which will which will eat up the mosquito larvae, right? And we may also spray DDT and BHC to kill the adult larvae to kill the adult mosquito as well as their larvae, right? So prevention is always better than cure. So in case of this filariasis or elephantiasis, there is no possible cure after you are heavily infected, right? So that is all about ascariasis and filariasis. So I think this is sufficient for today.